Hey. Hello, happy Monday. And we are back for the weekly Q&A. I am Shamaree. I am a relationship and intimacy coach, and I empower women to get the confidence and pleasure that they deserve so that they no longer settle for lack of satisfaction, especially in relationships. And I do these weekly Q&As unless it's a holiday or some other special occasion in my life, or if I just need a break, honestly. But we do them weekly where you guys submit questions to me throughout the week, and I take time to answer some of those here live for you guys. So I have been keeping track of the questions that I have been getting. I know last week it was a little bit different. The Q&A was only about the challenge that I did last week, but this week we are back as normal. Questions from you guys, the things that you have been asking. However, the first thing that I did want to say, it's not necessarily a question, it's just a theme that I had been noticing from questions that I have been answering already for people, or just conversations that I've been having with people, or even just things that I've been seeing on social media. And basically what I wrote down so that I can remember is sometimes it's you. And so I mentioned this briefly before in a live that I did, I was featured on, but people will ask for advice, and there's like, tell their situation, explain the whole thing, and then at the end they're like, okay, they need some advice, they need some feedback. And then when you provide that feedback, I find that sometimes people are not willing or wanting to hear it if it does not fall in line what they were already thinking. So a lot of times we do look for those co-signers, and I think I mentioned this before on live, like, we know who those people are in our lives. We know who's gonna back us up and tell us, oh, you're right, forget that person, they're in the wrong. And we know who's going to cheer us on in that way. And we know who the people are that would tell us the truth. And sometimes it is you. So some feedback that I was providing to people is like, yeah, this person, this is what they've done wrong, but you were wrong too, or there were things that you could have done better. And I think that both of you probably need to do some work. And immediately people get defensive, and it's I understand we build up defenses for a reason, as protection, but if we are genuinely wanting to work on ourselves, genuinely wanting to be a better person, to be better in relationships, or even just better for ourselves, because ultimately that's what's most important, being the best version of yourself so that you can feel content in that, feel happy with yourself, be at peace with yourself, then you gotta be able to accept that you're not perfect 100% of the time. And sometimes it is you. And so if you are one of those people who have difficulty with this, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do get defensive initially when I first hear something, depending on the context that it's provided to me, but I always take time to think about it after the fact. Whether I think the person had any evidence or not, I always take the time to think about it after the fact, to really take a look, like, yo, Shamaree, are you really tripping? Like, is this something you really need to work on? Just because I want to be the best version of myself, like, I don't want to be out here looking crazy, sounding crazy, when I can work on it, when it's something that is in my power to change. And so if you are asking for advice and you genuinely want to change, because some people say they want to change and they don't, but if you genuinely do, then I challenge you to, even if you don't agree, to consider all criticism or all advice and feedback before you write it off. So especially if y'all asking for advice, I'm gonna give you the advice. I try to be as objective as possible. Obviously, I'm also a human, and I had my own experiences that I could use as examples, but I really try to be objective in a situation, and I'm not going to just side with a woman because I am a woman. I'm not going to side with the black person because I'm a black person. I really do try to look at things in an objective way, and if there is something that you can address within that situation, that's within your power, because remember, we can't change them, but if there's something within your power to address within that situation, I like to bring that up because that's something you can do right now. You can work on that right now. And so I challenge you to at least listen, keep an open mind, consider it. And then if you don't agree, you don't agree. But don't write it off before you've considered it. Once I gave that feedback, they immediately had a response, which signaled to me that they did not take time to process it. They did not take time to think about it. They did not take time to consider it. And then another thing that I noticed too is that not only are people not necessarily wanting to hear these things, which is fine, I get it. Like I said, it can be challenging, a difficult thing to do. But even once it is written out and explained to them, because maybe it's my delivery. Like, I think that I'm a very honest person. I like to be as direct as possible. I'm not gonna make it real flowery for people. So I say things so that it's very clear and something that people can understand pretty directly. But maybe that's on me. Again, I like to take a look at myself. Maybe I could say things in a better way. So after I try to clarify, like, this is what I meant when I said that. Just to make sure that you understand, I'm not trying to come at you. I'm not telling you there's something wrong with you, but I'm just saying in this situation, you could possibly work on this. And then it's still met with that defense or kind of doubling down on the fact that they are not wrong. At that point, obviously, if you are a therapist, or I think they probably say this in other fields, but they always tell us not to work harder than our clients. So if you don't want it, then I can't want it for you. I'm sorry. So at that point, then I just kind of have to wash my hands of it and walk away. But it's very important to understand that sometimes it is you, and even if it's a small portion. So if we kind of split this up into, like, those pie charts, and there's 100% altogether, right? And I'm in an argument with my significant other. Even if they are 80% at fault, that still leaves 20% on me. So even though they are most of the problem, excuse me, that doesn't mean that there's nothing there for me to work on. I still have 20% that was on me that I can address. So I just wanted to mention that. If you need help with that, then I got you. You can go ahead and register for the challenge, Complete Confidence. We talk a lot about this in the challenge, and we get into a little bit more detail, and there's activities that go along with it. It was a free 5-day challenge. We did it last week, but the replays are available until June 17th. So if you want to go ahead and binge that before it disappears, then you want to do it now, go follow me up in the drop down up here, if you're not already, and click on the link in my bio. When you scroll down under work with me, you should see the challenge. Click on that, input your name and email, and you will get access to the challenge where you can catch up on the videos. Like I said, there is a workbook with activities that go along with each day, so you want to make sure that you download that. Check out all of the pinned and featured posts, because I put it all together for you to make it really easy. So definitely do that. Like I said, we talk a little bit about being able to take a look at ourselves, and really having that self-awareness. And I think that some people are afraid of it, or they don't want to do the work of that, but it's definitely something that you can get help with. I'm here. I'm willing to do that with you. So definitely join the challenge. It's for the free. You can also book some time with me. I'm doing 30-minute clarity calls, so we can talk one-on-one for a little bit. But definitely, sometimes it's you, and sometimes it's been me, and it sucks to have to say that, but is so much better once you are able to address it and work on it and see that progress, and you feel so much more accomplished about yourself, and obviously that boosts your confidence, which is why we talk about it during Complete Confidence. So that's just something that I wanted to say and to get out before we jump into the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and read the first question that I have here, and it is, how do you know when to end a relationship? How do you know when to end a relationship? And so for this is going to vary per person. Obviously, different people put up with different things, and they have different rules for their relationship and all of those things, right? But what I say as a general kind of rule of thumb or concept is when the relationship, when you feel like there is more negative than positive. So if you created a pros and cons list, usually those lists are not created completely equally. Some things are going to be weighted more heavily than others. But when it starts to feel like you're having more negative, more bad times than positive, or it's hard for you to even think of anything positive about the situation, that's when people typically start to consider leaving a relationship, and this is over a time period, right? So if you had a bad week or two, typically if it's a long-term relationship, I don't necessarily think that is withstanding long enough for me. Again, everyone's different, but I would say that if it's an extended period of time and you feel like there's more negative than positive, it's really difficult to think of any positive benefits, positive experiences that you guys are having together, and you guys are both not working on improving that. So I always say, even if you have bad times, it happens. Bad times are fairly normal to happen with any relationship, but you both want to make sure that you are working actively in order. Hey, Angelique. You want to make sure that you guys are both working on improving it. So if you're both working on improvement, obviously you have better odds of it being improved, obviously. But one person can work on a relationship and create some influence of change, because if I change the way that I interact with you, even if you never step foot in therapy, you never hire a coach, you never read a self-help book a day in your life, you can still be influenced by the way that I interact with you. So if I change up my whole thing, I talk to you differently, I'm around you differently, you have no choice but to adjust to the new me, the new behaviors that I'm introducing. So you can potentially influence a relationship even as a single individual. You have better odds if both parties are doing so, but at least one. And if you both are not willing or not wanting to do that in any space at all, I always ask people to consider, if the relationship never, ever changes, everything remains the same from this point on. So if that's forever for you, if you want to get married, you want to have family, if that's forever, from now until then, if you would be satisfied or happy to continue this relationship as is forever, then go ahead. And if the answer is no, then that's when we want to think about, are we working on changing the things that I cannot take? And if we're not, that's when typically I would say maybe it's an issue of compatibility, maybe it's an issue of timing, lifestyle choices, etc. And if those things are pretty constant, not going to change, then you can either settle for being less than satisfied, not happy, just okay, or you can choose to leave the relationship. So those are just some things that I say what you should consider when you want to end a relationship, weighing out those pros and cons. When it starts to feel a lot more on the con side for an extended period of time, no one's making any effort to change that, or it's very resistant to the idea of it changing that, and there's nothing being done, you have to ask yourself, am I okay with this forever? And if you're not, that might be a time that you want to consider ending the relationship, just for the betterment of both of you, obviously. If you're both not happy and you're just staying in it because it's comfortable or because you're used to it, you could potentially have a happier, healthier situation if you allow yourself to go and allow them to go, so that they can find that same thing for themselves. So that's how I would answer that. Like I said, everyone's relationship is different, so your boundary is going to be different, but definitely consider those things before ending a relationship or threatening to end a relationship, because we shouldn't be threatening that if we're just mad or upset about something. That's something that we have to communicate about, and we can talk about that separate times, separate occasion. But I do want to kind of reintroduce myself. I am Shamaree. I'm a relationship and intimacy coach, and I empower women to get the confidence and pleasure that they deserve, so they no longer settle for lack of satisfaction, especially in relationships. I do these weekly Q&As where I answer questions that you guys submit to me throughout the week. Excuse me. So we go through the questions, and I just give you my little spiel here. If you're not following me, do so. And I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, can men and women be friends? Can men and women be friends? Yes, short answer. But I'm going to say what I say regarding any sort of friendship anyway, because ultimately, let me say this. I don't think that your genitals or your gender identity determines whether or not you can be friends with someone. So obviously the short answer is yes, but I'm going to give you some caveats or some things that I think are important to consider. So people typically say this because there is a lack of trust. Whether I don't trust myself in those sorts of situations, so I don't trust my partner in those sorts of situations, I haven't seen it work before, whatever that is coming from, that's coming from some form of mistrust, thinking that there's some ulterior motive. And so that is a question of kind of your mindset, and that's something that can be changed over time if you would like to work on that, because I know plenty of men and women who are friends, and it's literally just that. But I do want to say, when it comes to being friends with anyone, whether they're the same sex, opposite sex, you're attracted to them, whatever, it's important that you have no romantic feelings for this person. So this only gets tricky when you like them or they like you, or they're hoping one day this friendship will turn into something, or vice versa. Typically, being friends with someone is just being friends with someone, regardless, like I said, of the gender, the sex, race, all of those things, right? So there are some considerations, obviously, that are going to be different there, but it's not based only on that. A lot of times when it comes between the men and the women especially, it's because there's some attraction there, there's some hope there, unrequited feelings of some sort, and of friendship, when you like that person, or even just vice versa, typically does not work. Regardless of who it is, it doesn't work, at least long term, because there's always going to be a tinge of something underneath everything, right? So I'm hoping that maybe you'll see how much I like you, or maybe one day when you kind of finish doing all the things that you're doing with all these other people, you'll see that I was the right one all along. Like, the movies that show you that can happen. At the end of the day, you fall in love with your best friend that you grew up with, but that's not always how it works. And ultimately, if you're holding these feelings for this person, it can be very difficult for you to be not unattached, because we're attached to our friends, but to not have feelings when they're doing certain things, or to not to be able to push down your own feelings in order to interact with them. And so it just makes it a lot more difficult. So if you have feelings for that person, or if you suspect that they have feelings for you, then that's going to be very difficult. I don't know how successful that friendship will be in the long term, because obviously in the short term, it's very easy to cover feelings or hide feelings. But in the long term, it gets much more difficult. So yes, it can, but not when y'all low-key like each other. That's typically not successful at all. And there's exceptions to that, but usually it's not. So keep that in mind. If you feel weird about it, it's because of that mistrust or suspicion that there's going to be that attraction or something there. But a conversation is needed. Sometimes challenging your thoughts is needed as well. So keep that in mind. And then we have one more question. And so this one I got several times, and I'm gonna word it my way. But essentially what he was writing was that his wife won't let him come in her mouth, and he wants to know how he can convince her to do that, because it kind of ruins the experience for him. And so what I want to say first and foremost is that we do not convince people to do anything. I like that language, sounds really weird to me. I don't like that. But what we can do on our end is explain to people what it is that we like and what our motivation behind liking that is. So what is it that excites you about it? What is it that is pleasurable? What brings you the excitement around it? And really identify what that is and what the feeling that it brings to you is, what the sensations are. Really just explaining what your point of view is, and that you would love to experience that with the person that you love, the person that you're with, just so that there's very clear understanding. Because a lot of times when we say, well, I would just really like for you to do this because I want you to do it. Sometimes that's not clear enough. Context usually clarifies. So if I can understand where you're coming from, usually I'm a little more compassionate, a little bit more understanding than I would be otherwise. So definitely, as best you can, explain that to her. And then also have her explain her point of view, because obviously you're the one writing to me, so I don't know what her perspective is. And a lot of times with this, there are perceptions that are attached to why we feel the way that we do about things. So you want to kind of understand what it is that's preventing her from wanting to do that. So is it a question of the perception, like I mentioned? Is it that she doesn't want to be looked at in a certain way, or maybe she sees that as something that they only do in porn, or that you treat certain women that way, or like it's a degrading sort of act. So you want to ask her those questions so that she can clarify, like, is this something that I'm not doing because I look at it a certain way, or is it something I'm not doing because it tastes nasty, which is definitely possible, which you want to check your diet and make sure that you're making this an experience that she can actually manage and enjoy. Maybe it could also be a texture thing. Some people have a weird thing about textures, and it's not only with that, it could be like with other things in their life too. So it might not be a you thing that they don't want to do it for you. There could be so many other reasons that are behind it. So you want to be able to have a conversation. Why is she not wanting to do this, and what is her perspective? And then from there, she understands yours, you understand hers, and then maybe you guys can kind of come to some sort of agreement as you kind of reframe what's going to work for you guys. Maybe it's something that she'll only do a certain amount of times, maybe once a month, or on special occasions, or whatever the case may be. Maybe there's other alternatives that you can do in order to make it so that it's not taking away from your pleasure, but it's also not grossing her out or making her feel like she's less than or not important in the scheme of things. So definitely having that conversation. Sometimes we don't know what a certain thing means to the other person. Like, we just have our own perception. And if you're not having a conversation, I would never know what it means to you if you didn't tell me. So definitely make sure that you're having that conversation. That might be something I need to talk a little bit more about. But in the meantime, definitely if you are trying to figure out what you enjoy and why you enjoy it, and maybe you're not exactly sure how you can even verbalize that or what that even is. Some people don't really know. I do have my course, Better Sex Guide to Confidence, Satisfaction, and Orgasms Without Faking, and it's currently 50% off. So if you go ahead and click on my bio, the link there, click on that and you scroll down to courses. It's the only course there. Click on that. Go ahead, complete your purchase, and you have instant access. It's going to walk you through all of the layers of creating better sex in your life, better confidence, more relationship satisfaction, all of the things that impact our intimacy, not only physical. Obviously the physical is there because it's important too, but there's so much more to it. So if you need help with that process of trying to communicate what your sexual needs are, trying to nail down what they are in the first place before you can even verbalize it is key. Obviously, if you need help with that process, get the course, Better Sex Guide to Confidence, Satisfaction, and Orgasms Without Faking. I'm also, like I said earlier, doing the 30-minute consultation call, so definitely book some time with me and we can chat a little bit, and I can help you to kind of really identify what your issues are and help kind of guide you towards what solution might be most effective for you at this time. But if you have questions for me, definitely submit them throughout the week. You'll see in my story, I'm going to put up the little post so that you can submit questions. I keep a running list, and we'll be back here on Monday. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to try to do so. I have a meeting in a little bit, and I have some emails to respond to. But happy Monday. I'm happy to be back. I missed you guys. I hope you miss me too. But I will see you guys later, all right? Bye-bye.